Good evening. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Nedarim Daf Chavtes. We're starting 5 lines from the bottom on Kavches Amud Beis. If you have the photocopies that I have, it's the top section on the page that has 2 parts. And we are 5 lines from the bottom of that first page. We have learned in our Mishnah a case of Harei Netios Ha'elu Korban, that these saplings are going to be considered kadosh, provided that they don't yet get cut down. They'll be kadosh until they get cut down. And the Gemara is bothered by something right away. Ula olam, will they forever be kadosh? Amar bar pada pidan chosros v'kochos The problem is that if you have yet to cut them down, you can't be podeh, because if you're podeh, then it instantly becomes holy again because it's still attached to the ground. And you create this vicious cycle of not being able to create a pidyon. So yes, it's in fact true that while it's connected to the ground, it's impossible to generate a pidyon. Niksitzu, however, if in fact it was cut down, so then the halacha is podon pamachas v'dayo. One is able to create a pidyon. Once it's been cut down, now the moment of kedusha has ended, because we had said it's only a korban, it's only kadosh up until the time of ktsitza. But now that the sapling has been cut down, so therefore, says the Gemara, niktitzu podeh pamachas, then you do a pidyon v'dayo, and that will work. However, the Gemara gives us a dissenting opinion on the last line of Kavches Amud Beis. B'ul amar kevan sheniktitzu shuv ein podan. Once the ktsitza happens, there's nothing that you need to do. It automatically becomes podeh, and now it no longer has the initial status of kedusha it had while it was still attached to the ground. And as we turn to the top of Chavtes Amud Aleph, the Gemara is bothered. How can you say that? Amalei Rav Hamnuna, kedusha shebahen leheichan halcha. What happened to the kedusha of that tree? You didn't do anything according to the shita of Ula. According to the shita of Ula, the second you cut that tree, it lost its kedusha. How did that happen? After all, the Gemara asks, and the question's a little ridiculous in a way, as we'll soon see. Uma ilu amar leisha hayom at ishti ulamachar iyat ishti. If I tell a woman, listen, today you're my wife, but tomorrow you won't be my wife, mi nafka below get. There needs to be a transition of some kind that transitions her from being married to being not married. So too by the sapling. If the sapling is what halachic process did it go to degrade itself from kedusha to non-kedusha? So the Gemara says that's a ridiculous comparison. You're trying to compare the cutting of a sapling to the divorce of a woman. Says the Gemara, Omar le Rava. You can't compare our case, which is talking about kedushas damim, to the case of a woman, which is talking about kedushas haguf. Kedushas damim, when it comes to entities that have kedusha to them, paka bichdi, there the kedusha can go away all by itself. However, kedushas haguf lo paka bichdi. But when it comes to a woman who's married, lo paka bichdi, it's not automatic. Your question is flawed, but thank you for giving us the distinction. With a sapling that might have some kedusha, it'll go away on its own. The second the ktsitsa takes place, it's gone. But by a marriage, you're right. There needs to be some transition. We would call that having a get. Amar le Abaye, I disagree with you. Amar le Abaye, wait a second. Kedushas haguf lo paka bichdi. I can give you a case scenario where we see that kedushas haguf does go away automatically. How so? The case is v'hatanya shor ze ole kol lamed yom. This shiur is going to be considered an ola for the first 30 days. And a shlamim is a lower status than an ola. So where did this animal start? I placed it in the high level of an ola. And then on day 31, it transitions, it downgrades to a shlamim. Says the Gemara, kol lamed yom ola, la'achar lamed yom shlamim. But am I? If you're going to say that it's paka, that it's not paka bichti, that something that's kedushas haguf needs a transition, there was no transition. Elamai, it must be kedushas haguf ninhu paka bichti. Therefore, we see a sample where something has kedushas haguf and it's paka bichti, and that's a question in our Gemara. Do we say that something that has a kedushas haguf, does its kedusha go away automatically when it transitions to a new phase? Yes or no? By the isha, by a woman, by a marriage, we know that of course you need a get. Yet here, by the animal, when we're transitioning from ola to shlamim, it's kedushas haguf, but we don't see anything that's happening other than paka bichti. So that's the Gemara's question, and the Gemara responds, no. The case of ola b'shlamim is different. Really, kedushas haguf is not paka bichti, and there needs to be something that transitions them. But in our case, hacha b'maya skinon de'amar lidmei. I was only talking about the financial equivalent of. I wasn't talking about an ola proper. I'll give this money over to an ola. So therefore, there was no kedushas haguf in that case.
Also, like we're switching over to like.
What we're saying is that for these 30 days, whatever the financial value is of that animal will go to an ola, but it's not kedusha saguf, pulling out the carpet from under. Exactly. Says the Gemara, "Ihachi." If that's true, then ema seifa, then the rest of this brayso about an ola and a shlamim poses a difficulty for us. What if the case was different? We didn't start with ola and then switch over to shlamim. What if we started with shlamim? What if the language was la'achar lamed yom ola, after 30 days it will be an ola, and in the meantime ume'achshav shlamim. So why do we need both parts of this Mishnah? I amris bishlama, 2 lines from the bottom. If you want to say chada b'kedushas saguv v'chada b'kedushas damim, that one case is talking about a case of kedushas saguv where there's inherent kedusha, and another one is talking about something that only has financial kedusha, and that's why the brisa had 2 cases. Hainu de'itzrich le'latana lemisni tarte. We needed both of them. That I understand. The salka daita chamina kedushas saguv lo paka bichti. I might have thought that a case of kedushas saguv doesn't go away by itself. Dushas damim paka bichti. But when it comes to financial matters, it does go away by itself. Because of that, tana tarte. Therefore, I needed both. Ella, says the Gemara 4 lines down on Kaftes and Beis. Ella, I amris idi v'idi kedushas damim. If both cases in the Bryce are talking about kedushas damim, about ola going to shlamim and shlamim going to korban, if all we're talking about is dmei, the money of lamali lemisnei tarta, you already taught me this halacha in one case. Hashta yesh lomar mikdusha chamur lekdusha kalapaka. If going from an ola to a shlamim, from the more chamor to the more kal, because an ola has more kedusha, if by there we say it's paka, then mikdusha kala lekdusha chamur tzricha lemeima. That's ridiculous. Of course that's going to be paka, because that's kal to chamor. Of course that's going to work. So says the Gemara, great argument. And lema, perhaps this is tehavi tiyuvta de bar pada. Bar pada was the name of the Gemara that we started with at the very top of the, I should say, the very bottom of Kaf Ches and Beis. And there, Bar pada says that the kedusha never stops, and you have to be podeh one time in Vidayo. So the Gemara says maybe this is a tiyuvta. What did he hold bar pada? Damar lo paka kedusha bichti. He says that kedusha sakuf doesn't go away by itself. So says the Gemara, that's really not a kasha in bar pada. Amar Rav Papa, Amar Lach bar pada, hachi kamar. Really, this is pshat. Imlo Amar me'achshav shlamim. If he didn't say the sentence of in the meantime, this animal is a shlamim, just that in 30 days it will become an ola. If he never said me'achshav shlamim, then la'achar lamed yom ola habe, then it will definitely be an ola. Midi dehabe. This is no different than the following case of Haomer liisha. He's kachi li la'achar lamed yom. I'm proposing today harat mekudeshes li. But in 30 days, sitting at a chuppah today, we just watched a chuppah take place. Let's say that tonight was 30 days. It wasn't. They're married, but let's say that it was. So says the Gemara, they're married. Even if by day 30, when the marriage is chal, the shava pruta, the coin dissolved, or whatever money that was given, it was food, it was consumed, it doesn't matter.
Of all, they used to make a way.
Absolutely. Well, no, that condition was chal right away with a delay for the chuppah, a little different. But says the Gemara, did you just compare the case of la'achar lamed yom to the case of mikudeshes by 30 days? No, that case of the marriage is pshita. That's ridiculous. Of course they're married. That's a regular case of kiddushin. Why would that not work? Says the Gemara, lo tzricha dehadarbe, because maybe we were talking about someone who wanted to recant their marriage offer. And then says the Gemara, that's great, but it doesn't work for everybody. That works according to the Shita that says that once a husband says Hareat Mikudeshes Li in 30 days that we're actually married, and Eina Chozeres, the Mefarshir explains that if somebody else proposes to her, it's not Chal, because she's already married, she can only be engaged to one person. But according to the one who says that Chozeres, that you can go back on that kinyan, and if she were to get engaged during that time to another man, that second marriage is Chal, says the Gemara, don't worry. Afilu Lamanda Amar Hasam Chozeres, even according to the Shita that by marriage you can be chozer, hacha in regards to the case of an ola, where a person says that this is going to be an ola, there, shiny, that case is different. Why? De amiraso legevoa kimisiraso lehedyot. A very lam d'shalain. This requires time and patience and rishonim, but the Gemara gives this beautiful idea. When you make a verbal declaration, a verbal commitment to the gevoa, sealed and done. That's it. The words come out of your mouth, it's over. No conversation is done.
No kinyan, no nothing else.
No kinyan, no nothing. And what is it equivalent to? Kimisiraso lehedyo. Like doing the act of misira. I hereby am giving you this, an act of kinyan. Take my item. So when it comes to gavoa, and this we would want to, let's say a person is makdish tzedakah to a base medrash. It's ad kavoa. We have to figure out in psak what that actually means. But this is the Gemara's conclusion over here, is that the case of marriage is not really comparable to the case of Ola, because by marriage it is possible to retract and recant, but it's not true in regards to the case of Ola. And why? As mentioned, because that when I make a verbal declaration to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is just completely signed, done. What's the language? Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah.
Conversation is very short. The whole thing is over. Masha'in came in regards to marriage, and therefore, this case is not comparable to the one we started with. We'll stop right here. Tomorrow night we'll pick up with Daf Lamed. Wishing you all a beautiful night. And Mazel Tov on the Chasana.
Waiting to